around. I wait, and it stopped circling, which means we are recording. So hello and welcome. It's so lovely to have so many of you on the session today. It is one of my favorite sessions to do, which is why I nominated myself. And I'll tell you a little bit about who I am. I'll tell you a little bit about ChatterBug. We have had some questions emailed in to us as well, which I will, I hope to address at the end. But, you know, I do like my sessions to be interactive, so please feel free to ask questions as we've discussed. Okay, so I will start by presenting. Oh, that didn't work. And there we go. Okay. Right, so I will start by introducing myself and who I am. So my name is Asma Khanum, and I am one of the original founders of ChatterBug Speech and Language Therapy service. I am a speech and language therapist, and I trained back in, I want to say I think I graduated in 2004, and I trained at UCL. An interesting fact about myself is my niece is actually training to be a speech and language therapist currently. I believe she's at City University. So I'm quite excited to have another speech and language therapist in the family. I have 3 girls. I don't think any of them are going to go into speech therapy, unfortunately. I think they are probably more interested in numbers, engineering, arty stuff. So, you know, if I'm lucky, I might have a pop star in the family. Maybe we shall see. So let's get back to a little bit about what we're going to cover today. So I've told you a little bit about myself, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the company and how that came about. I'm going to tell you about the role of an NQP at ChatterBug and what a day in the life of an NQP looks like. We'll talk a little bit about career progression, because although you're just about finishing your degree, you'll be thinking about the next steps beyond being a student, and you know, you want to see how that career is going to look. I have some testimonials from previous graduates as well, and existing ChatterBug employees as well. I'll tell you a little bit about what we've been doing during COVID as well. Hold on. Let's put that on like that. That makes a bit more sense now. And student opportunities and training opportunities that are coming up. I'll tell you about career opportunities that are coming up at ChatterBug as well. As I mentioned, I'll talk about some of the QA sessions, and I'll tell you about any upcoming training. So hopefully that is that's going to cover all the bases, but please do pop in a message or raise your hand, and I'll answer questions as we go as well. Okay, so here we go. So a little bit about ChatterBug. So ChatterBug is a social enterprise, and we work with a range of schools and families across the UK. We are an NHS business partner, and we're commissioned by the NHS to provide their speech and language therapy services. So some areas don't have an NHS speech therapy service, they have a commissioned speech and language therapy service. So we deliver that in for Halton Borough Council, so that's in Cheshire. We also have a number of local authority contracts where the local authority commissions our services for all of their schools. So we do quite a lot of that work across the country as well. North Yorkshire is our closest one. We are based here in Leeds, but we are a national organisation. And I guess one of the positives that's come out of COVID is that although as a company we have been a national organization for quite a while, we've come even closer together as a team with this virtual working. And actually our staff now work across sites, which has been really, really interesting because some of them are different models. But so we have therapists that are based in Leeds that are supporting families in Liverpool, and vice versa. So the different accents and some of the vocabulary has been very, very interesting and fascinating. So it's definitely been a great learning curve, but very positively embraced by the ChatterBug team. We have been established since 2008, and I basically moved from the south to the north and realised that there was a massive difference between the services that children and families are able to access in the south to what was available in the north. I actually remember describing it a little bit like stepping into a time machine and going back in time. It just felt very, the provision just didn't feel like it was meeting the needs of the communities. And I won't focus too much on my journey because it's quite interesting and it's really shaped how we've built ChatterBug. But what I will say is I went from being in a senior management position working for the NHS in London to then starting again in a band 5 position. So working with other NQPs. And that really opened up lots. It just made me really aware of the importance of the support and provision that we provide NQPs to help them become amazing therapists that were then able to support these families. And you'll see a lot of those experiences that have shaped how we support NQPs at ChatterBug. And it is a little bit different to what you would experience in the NHS. And obviously there will be elements of similarity. So I'll point out the similarities and differences. But I think it's a fantastic place to be an NQP, but also we like to hold on to our team, and we are a young organisation. So the NHS has been around for 75 years. We've only been around since 2008. So we're constantly evolving and developing our structure as well to be able to provide new challenges for our staff. Okay, so back to my presentation. So our vision as an organisation is to be the leading provider of speech and language therapy services known for providing high quality evidence-based input that provides real results. So for us, the key bit is that provides real results. We're all about setting functional goals, functional targets, because it's great. Somebody can say a specific sound, but how is that going to impact on their life now? How does that change their life? What are they now able to do that they couldn't do before? So for us, it's all about functional impact with the child at the center of it, led by the child. We aspire to make speech and language available to all, regardless of their financial background. So as a social enterprise, we work in communities where there's a high level of need. We also use a proportion of our social enterprise. So basically the way our business structure is that we are a business and we have this social enterprise arm, we have this social enterprise pot. So a proportion of our income, between 10 and 12% of our income, goes into our social enterprise pot, and we use that to provide free or discounted activities. We pride ourselves on being innovative and trying new ways of working. We believe in being brave and willing to face challenges to bring about change. So we talk about this quite a lot in our organization, is about taking safe risks and having a go at things, because being in any kind of healthcare role, you're making decisions about people and people's lives, and it is scary. So, and it doesn't matter, and I'll promise you this, that fear stays with you throughout your career. And actually we see it in a very positive way, in that it's there as a way to challenge you and remind you and make sure that you've thought about everything that you need to think about. But actually, it should never be a barrier. And we listen to our service users and deliver what it is that they want, but also what they need. And sometimes that involves doing something that we're not comfortable with. So and by that, I mean delivering a therapy approach or using an AAC device that we may never have used before. Yeah, so it's about putting the patient right in the heart of everything that we do. So our team, do you know, something that we're also very, very proud about at ChatterBug is how diverse our team is. And I don't just mean in terms of ethnic diversity, but we also have a team with disability. We have more of a gender mix than other teams as well. And you know, we've done it all effortlessly without ever thinking about it. It's a very inclusive team and a very open-minded team. We welcome staff from all walks of life, and I think that's what makes us so good at what we do. We all bring our own experiences, life experiences, as well as our professional experiences, and create this fantastic service. Yeah, that's what I will say, just a little bit about our team. So our expertise, so we work across the different health and education sector. We do have specific experience of working within education. We understand what Ofsted requirements are. We're able to support our schools to provide the best provision for children with SLCN that help them meet their educational targets as well as their therapy goals as well. So our values as an organisation are open, connected, dependable, and fortitude. So the open refers to being so listening to our clients, our customers, our staff, what they want from our service, what they want our service to deliver, and being open to different views and ideas. There's a big focus on building relationships and being transparent. So we talk about the HCPC values quite a lot, and I think one of the things that people talk about is honesty, and I think people just take that a little bit for granted, because it's hard actually to be honest sometimes about how you're feeling about certain situations or certain challenges. But we have a team where we value those discussions and encourage those discussions, because if we know what your challenges are as a member of our team, we're able to help you with that. So that openness is very, very important. So second one, we see challenges as an opportunity to learn. That's all about fortitude. We, especially in your role as an NQP, you'll be doing things that you don't necessarily feel completely ready or prepared for. But by holding your hands and saying, don't worry, they're there, you'll be fine. Don't worry about those complex children, just focus on these easy ones. We're not actually doing our team any favors. And what we do is provide really good supervision and support that provides that safety net. And we say, right, let's work together. Let's think, you've got this complex case. Let's problem solve it together. What do you need to do? What skills do you have? What skills do you need? Right, what are we going to do? Go have a go. Let's come back and discuss it. We really encourage our team to embrace challenges, and that's where we see our therapists really grow. And I can promise you, every member of the senior team really celebrates every single step that our staff take. And they might not always see those celebrations, but definitely myself and the senior team have these conversations all the time about feeling really proud of achievements, particularly of our NQPs, but all of our staff, of course. The next one in the right-hand corner is we work closely with clients and colleagues, sharing knowledge. That's all about being connected. And we believe in placing, as I explained, placing the child at the center of everything that we do, and working with everyone in their environment to be able to get the best outcomes for them. And dependable is all about doing what we say we're going to do. We create a positive and comfortable atmosphere in which colleagues and clients can feel understood, supported, and respected. We listen to the needs of others and do what is promised. So that's all about being dependable. So if we say we're going to provide a service or provide a provision, that's what we will deliver. Okay, so we work with children with a wide range of difficulties, and it ranges from young children, all the way up to young adults. Sometimes it goes all the way up to the age of 25. Usually includes those with an EHC plan. We are currently exploring delivering a service for adults with learning difficulties as well. And we offer the full services. So we do assessments, we do training, intervention, a whole range of intervention. We're very intervention focused. Even within our NHS service, we deliver a lot more intervention than other SLT services. And I'm going to say a little bit more about this, actually. I'm going to stop presenting for a minute. Now, the reason why the intervention element is so key, if you imagine a teacher that is teaching for the first time, we would expect as a minimum that they've completed a year of actually hands-on teaching before we would expect them to teach somebody else to be a teacher or deliver a session. And one of the things that we found fundamentally that we felt didn't work with some SLT services is that we take NQP SLTs who haven't had an opportunity to practice and refine their therapy skills, but we're comfortably putting them in a position where they're working a consultative model where all they do is assess and write therapy programs, but they don't actually deliver the intervention themselves. Now, we realize that actually fundamentally that means that your foundations aren't secure, but we're asking you to go into schools and show other people how to deliver therapy programs. And that's not fair on you as NQP, but it's not fair on the member of staff. So it's really, and we're finding that all of our NQPs that were joining our service, because we recruit from all over the country, everybody was coming with different range of experience. So some had never had any clinical placements. We've definitely been in that position, or some have had very limited pediatric experience, or some have had very limited pediatric experience, but they want to work predominantly in pediatrics. So obviously that is a real issue. So we want to immerse all of our therapists in as much experience of hands-on delivering therapy and seeing therapy from the beginning right through to the end. So being involved in the assessment and seeing those clients through an intervention block and then reviewing them at the end. And, you know, it's so rewarding as a therapist to see that progress. It wasn't until I started working in independent practice that I realized that speech therapy actually works. I knew theoretically it works, but I'd never seen it. And this was for the first 10 years of my career, right? So it gets to a point, if I'm being completely honest, that you start doubting whether speech therapy actually makes a difference. And the first time I did speech sound therapy, 10 years into my career, I was just so elated when I saw these children making progress, and I just couldn't believe it. And one of the things that I was reflecting on this week, actually, and I was thinking, either people have become more generous or actually they really value the work our therapists do, because I have never, ever managed a team where they get as much positive feedback, verbal feedback, but also, you know, physical gifts and cards than this team. Like, you know, it's I received an email from a team today where they got boxes of chocolates because the child had made progress and the parents couldn't believe it. And I think the reason for that is we're more involved in the therapy and the delivery, and we're actually doing it and we're seeing the progress. And although the consultative model is great and is completely acceptable in certain situations, actually, we've trained for 3 to 4 years to deliver this intervention. Nobody else can do it better than us, right? Even you as an NQP will be able to deliver it much better than a TA or a teacher, because this is your specialist field. So if you take one thing away from today's session, is remember your knowledge, even though you are an NQP, the knowledge you have today is expert, right? You have knowledge that other people in the world do not have, and that's what makes you a specialist. So from the minute you qualify, you have specialist and expert knowledge, and that's really important, because I think we always undervalue or underrate the knowledge that we have and how unique those skills are. I mean, what other career can you go into that goes from data and statistics to anatomy and physiology and everything in between? There aren't many professions out there. So we as speech and language therapists are being exposed to a whole range of skills that we will have automatically. But what you need is to be able to apply that knowledge in the first 6 to 8 months to be able to form that solid foundation to make you amazing therapists. And that's what we like to do. We take that raw talent and we like to mold it. Whilst I have you all on screen, I can see it. Does anybody have any questions at this point? No? Okay, fantastic. I'll go back to presenting. Okay, so services that we offer. We also have the CALS service. Now, unfortunately, there just aren't enough speech and language therapists, and there's more demand for our service than we are able to provide. However, we're very reluctant to water down the work that we do. So we last year, or maybe the year before, actually, we spent a good chunk of time, I want to say about 6 months, developing a program that would allow us to take people with a background in education or therapy and develop their skills. So almost like a little curriculum of our own to be able to deliver higher quality intervention. Obviously, they can't do the assessments because they're not therapists, but they are able to deliver interventions. And this program covers all the basics like developmental norms but the focus very much specifically is on how to deliver intervention and engaging children as well. So we developed this CALS program. They're called Communication and Language Specialists, and they are highly skilled, and they continue to access support and training alongside their employment as well. And actually many of our CALS are speech and language therapists background, so they may not have worked in speech therapy for a while for whatever reason, or they've worked as speech therapists and they want to take a little bit of a back step and just really spend time with the children, which is what the intervention allows you to do, or they are from a teaching background. So that's really successful. And we have, how many CALs do we have across the service? I want to say maybe in the regions of 7 to 10 CALs. And two of our CALs have been with us for a very long time and actually worked for the old NHS service when we were commissioned, so came over to our service. So they are very, very knowledgeable about their little specialist areas. So I've talked a little bit about us as a business. So ultimately it is a business, and people don't always think of the NHS as a business, but it very much is. It has a budget. It needs to be able to use that budget efficiently, and it needs to use that budget to help grow and develop their business. And that's basically us. And then we have our social objectives that we invest our social enterprise fund into. And these are our social objectives. We call them the 3 Rs. So the first one is raise awareness of the impact of speech, language, and communication difficulties, SLCN. So a lot more people are now aware that speech and language difficulties exist, but people don't necessarily know the lifelong impact some of these difficulties have. So for us, it's about really keeping that high on the agenda. The second one is one of the reasons why I'm talking to you today: recruit, train, and provide a high quality workforce. So we've identified as a business, because we're recruiting the NQPs, that there is a massive gap in some of the knowledge, and we want to be able to support you very early on to make you these amazing therapists that we know our children and families need. And we invest quite a lot into doing lots of internal training, but also our supervision of our staff, and then reduce our environmental impact. So we are a paperless organization and have been for many years, and we're always finding ways on how we can reduce our impact on the environment. So things like car share where it's appropriate. Obviously at the moment that's not appropriate. Working from home is a great one, so we're definitely clocking up lots of ticks on that final one this last year or so. And here we are. So this is our journey. So 2008 was the initial idea, and started off as a one-man band, as a sole trader. Then by about 2011, I want to say that we were, I can't remember now how many schools we had, but we had, it was starting to grow, registered as a limited company in 2012, and recruited a small team around 2013-14, which is when we first started to grow. 2015, you'll see the pound sign. That's when I personally got paid for the first time from ChatterBug, which was lovely. And then 2016, 2017, it just shows again the growth, different schools coming on board, different areas coming on board, new contracts. So 2018 to 2019, we were a team of about 45 across 4 locations, commissioned by over 80 schools across Leeds, Leicester, Scarborough. It's a lot more now. A shorter waiting list in Holton with happier families. So when we took over the NHS service in Holton, there was about 1,000 children on the caseload, and the waiting list was absolutely ridiculous. They weren't meeting their 12-week target. But when they put this service up for tender, the commissioners wanted all initial assessments to be seen within 4 weeks. And I can happily say we've definitely blown that out of the water. Even during the pandemic, we found creative ways around this. So it's been definitely one of our success stories. 2020, we've launched lots of new products over the last few years. The one that I really want to focus on a little bit is Octopus Enhanced Patient Record System. So we recognized that there was a need for developing a tool. So obviously in your placements, you probably would have come across things like Rio or System 1. We decided that we needed something that's even more bespoke for our service and for speech therapists. And we developed OEPR in-house. It's amazing. And the nice thing about OEPR is that it actually has the phonetic keyboard, so that you can actually write straight into a phonetic keyboard, and it'll put it onto your case notes. And I'm not sure that there are any other system that does that currently. All of our outcome measures are incorporated into this. It just makes us a lot more efficient as an organization. And we are due to launch our first MDT clinic sometime around April time, I believe. We're working with psychology services to provide autism assessments, and looking at launching some sensory feeding groups as well. So new opportunities for our team in Leeds, and in Holton we're already involved in the MDT panel assessments, because that's part of our NHS service as well. So as an employer, what does your role look like? Because this is what we really want to find out a little bit more about. So as I explained, there is a strong intervention focus, but you are involved in the whole service. So from assessment all the way to to intervention reviews, involved in EHC planning. So this slide just gives you a little bit of an overview of what a day might look like. You provide a range of formal, informal assessments. We have developed a lot of in-house therapy programs. I should really mention, I'll tell you, I'll come off screen for a second and just mention, oh, where are you gone? I'll just mention Bright Speech. So Bright Speech is another tool that we've developed, and we wanted to really focus on this next year. And Bright Speech is an online tool that allows you to access therapy programs, you as a therapist, but also modeling sessions. So we are not waiting, so staff are not waiting for therapists to come into school to model a therapy program or a care plan to them. And it allows them to deliver the intervention to a higher level, so they can go back and watch this video as many times as they want to. But it's very useful for NQPs as well, because you'll be delivering lots of intervention that approaches that you may not have delivered in the past, so colourful semantics or shape coding. So all the hopes are that we will have these demo videos on our Bright Speech platform. And therapy programs, they're all going to be there, all written, so you spend far less time writing and doing admin. All the SMART targets are written, the activities are broken down. So the hope is that you actually spend more time doing the doing and seeing the children and the families than working and doing admin. So that's our Bright Speech project. Is very, very exciting, and we want to take it big the next year or so. Any questions at this point? No? Oh, we have a question. Please go ahead.
Hey, I was just wondering, you just mentioned colourful semantics and shape coding and stuff. I was wondering if there are any particular interventions that you use kind of most often?
That's such a wonderful question, but there isn't, because it's very much dependent on the needs of the child. But I'll tell you why it's a good question. I'm not sure how other services that deliver intervention and what it will be very much dependent on what provision they provide. But in our service, the things that come up again and again are things like colourful semantics, shape coding, but we're really big on zones. Have you heard of zones of regulation? So we're really big on zones of regulation, and zones is actually incorporated into all of our clinical pathways, as well as these certs. Are you familiar with certs? Mm-hmm. Right, so certs is as well. So certs is incorporated into all of our pathways and really helps with that clinical decision making. And I would make sure, now a lot of NHS services do deliver, depending on where you work, do either have speech sound clinics, and some just don't have any provision apart from therapy programs. So in our service, we do a lot of speech sound therapy work. So I would say having a good grounding and understanding the logical steps and of progression for speech sound therapy, and really understanding the difference between articulation and phonological and everything in between is really, really key, because we find that a lot of therapists, even seasoned therapists, don't fully understand that because they haven't spent enough time refining their skills. And we have a speech sound advanced practitioner who is an expert in that field and provides loads of guidance and training. So she does lots of study circles around transcriptions to make sure that the team have their skills up to date. Because if you haven't used it for a while, you will use those skills. And there are so many different approaches, even within the speech sound field. So it's a great question, but not an easy one to answer. And it all depends on where you go to work. So definitely in ChatterBug, you're exposed to a wide range of therapy approaches. But if you were working in maybe some more traditional services, they may just offer a language provision, or they may have nothing for language, but then focus just on the speech children. That is more likely, I think. But I think it's really important to get a balanced experience of both. And I do think that here at ChatterBug, that is something that we're very good at providing. You'll see everything. You'll see the full range of complexity within your schools. Hopefully that is that's answered your question.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Brilliant. Does anybody else have a question? No, actually, there's something else that is probably quite useful. It's the What Works website. Have you all access to What Works website? If you haven't, the What Works website, it's a bit of a mouthful, it's a very useful website to become familiar with, because it tells you about all the different latest therapy approaches that are available. Now, please note, if you do go working for a service that has very strict and rigid pathways, it's almost like being shown the golden egg, but you can't touch it, because it gives you exposure to all the latest evidence, and there's like a tick box. Sorry, it grades it with ticks in terms of the quality of the evidence. So we try and follow everything that has medium and strong evidence, because that's us as an organization. We have that flexibility. But the frustration sometimes is that you look at this list that tells you that you're delivering this approach, but actually the quality of evidence behind it is very weak. It can be a little bit demotivating, but it's definitely worth being aware of it. And also remember that there will always be those clients that some of those approaches are just not suitable for. So in some NHS services, intensive interaction is recommended a lot. And some services, that's all they recommend. And actually, if you go back and have a look at the evidence behind intensive interaction, it's not as strong as some other approaches. And also, what happens after intensive interaction, right? Intensive interaction is the foundation, but what more do we do after that? And that's the key bit, is never being afraid to constantly challenge and review your decisions. Actually, golden tip, I always say this to NQPs when I used to manage NQPs. Don't be afraid to challenge a decision in terms of the case notes and the care that's being provided that another therapist has made, especially if you think that therapist is more experienced, because all of us, including myself, can benefit from a fresh pair of eyes. And remember, you guys would have been exposed to the latest evidence. So if you go to work for an organization that isn't aware of the latest evidence, how will they know unless you tell them? So don't be afraid to share, and don't be afraid to question where provision has been put in for a child that you think, actually, I wonder if this is the right provision. And so many times I've seen that NQPs have got it right, but they question themselves because they think, well, that person's more experienced than me. Remember, us experienced therapists are busy and can get a little bit stuck in a rut delivering the same thing. And we need someone to say, actually, have you heard about this new approach? Have you thought about this? So yeah, go apply and go work for organizations that embrace that way of thinking, because that's what that's what the next generation needs. They need people that are able to challenge in a constructive way. And we want you to feel confident to come and say, actually, we think there may be a better tool out there. So great question, Kate, even though it's digressed into something slightly different, but it's a really good question. Okay, I'll go back to presenting. Okay, a day at ChatterBug. So 9 to 3, most of our therapists are school-based. So this is our Leeds team. Our Halton team is slightly different. So this has been put together with the Leeds team information. So most of our school, obviously at the moment everyone's working from home, but a general day would be 9 to 3 in schools. And if you were doing, say, a day of just initial assessments, you may see up between 3 and 4, usually around 3. But then your admin time is built into that. Now, again, golden rule that I have for myself is, regardless of what the session is, I always allow an hour for my session, like in terms of my planning, not physically having an hour, but in terms of my planning. So if I know that I have, if I'm delivering a review session or a therapy session, but I need to also have a conversation with that child's member of staff or key worker, I would allow an hour for that session, because that would comfortably mean that I can see the child for 20 minutes, transition the child, write their case notes, do my planning, all within that hour. So now it's going to be a balancing act. And anyone that tells you it's easy is lying. The first 6 months of an NQP job is tough. Now, if you can come to terms with that, it's going to be awful. But after that first 6 months, it will become easier because you will be a lot more familiar with the systems. You will be a lot more comfortable with your decision making. And you'll be able to do it quicker and you'll have a bit more of a flow. But the first 6 months are tough. But it's these little things that, in terms of managing and organizing yourself, that will make it easier and giving yourself enough time. So we say to our therapists, challenge yourself to complete all your clinical admin by 3, because then it will almost feel like 3 to 4 is your bonus time, right? And we are seeing that our staff can achieve that. Not everybody, because everybody, in terms of how they manage their workload, is different. But by and large, most people aim for that target of 9 to 3. I'm going to get all my clinical admin done, and then whatever's left over, I can tidy up in that 3 to 5 slot. Also, in that slot is when you might be invited to team meetings or supervision sessions, etc. So if we call it office time, and sometimes we have private clients as well, that we might slot into those slots as well. Okay, and this is Holton. So the Holton service is slightly different. It's the NHS service. We do have a trade service, but it's very, very small. So trade service refers to schools buying in our service, but it's small and it's growing. Most of our work, so we offer a range of school and clinic in Holton. We do have a dysphagia clinic. We have specialist provisions. We do the MDT assessments. But this particular service comes with all the other additional stuff, like going to panel meetings, safeguarding meetings, lots and lots and lots of EHCPs, which our NQPs do with support right from the beginning. We support our NQPs to be able to complete EHCs. And it's because we have robust systems and templates in place that allows us to be able to do that without putting pressure. So we've talked a little bit about that. A typical day for a ChatterBug NQP. I feel like we're repeating ourselves a little bit there. Let's talk about supervision. Okay, so let me come back to you all and just check if there are any other questions at this point before we go on to talk about supervision. No? Is that something that you're all really interested in? Raise hands. Yeah, because that's one of the questions that a lot of people ask us about interviews. So obviously familiarize yourself with what the Rcslt say. We have a question. Saika, is it? If you just unmute yourself and ask a question, Saika.
Oh, hi. No, sorry, I just raised my hand.
Oh, is it by accident?
Yeah.
Oh, no worries.
In response to the supervision that you said.
Oh, right. Sorry, I got my wires crossed there.
No.
And there is a question here. Just give me a second. Yes, it was just a comment from Shabana about intensive interaction. Yes, so supervision is a question that is asked about at interview all the time. Now, the key thing to supervision, having supervision available is great. But in order to make the most of it, it has to be driven by you. If you go into your supervision meetings knowing what it is that you want from them, you will get a lot more out of it. Now, at ChatterBug, and that rule applies to whichever organization you work for. That is the golden rule for supervision. You will get out of it as much as you put into it. Now, at ChatterBug, we use a solution-focused approach to clinical supervision. And the solution-focused approach, again, sees the person bringing the question as the expert. And it's the team, and they happen in groups, and it's the team and the facilitator who help to extract that information for you to be able to come to your own conclusions. And sometimes you'll go into supervision and you have a very specific question, like, what technique do I use for this particular condition or whatever it is? Other times, you what we see with NQPs is that what they want to do is they actually haven't made sense of everything that they have. So bring everything, and all they really want to know is what is the next step. But they haven't made sense of that. So really, really spend time thinking about, right, I've got all this, I've got this child and he's got all of this going on. I have no idea what to do. But what is it, the one question that I need answers to move on to the next stage? So really think about what you want answered. Really, really think about what is the question? What is stopping me from progressing with this child? So we use that solution-focused approach, and it's well evidenced that solution-focused approach helps that professional, and it's not just used in speech therapy, it's used in lots of different professions. It helps that person become more skilled and more able to problem solve when there is no support available, because there will always be those times. Okay, so have you all been, how many of you have been exposed to solution-focused approach to supervision? Okay, so not many. So two people. I got it right this time. That raised hand. Okay, yeah, it's basically where you have in our organization where you have a group of critical friends, and they ask you lots of questions to help you to tease out what it is that you're struggling with and what it is that you need answered, and it is more, it's very proactive. It can be frustrating when you just have a specific question, but because you're working in clinical supervision groups, your clinical facilitator gets to know you very well, and you get to know your team very well, so they'll know whether it's one of those I just need an answer question, or whether it's something that they can support you more with in terms of using this solution focused approach. So it's very, very proactive. And also I still have clinical, I have solution focused support as a business leader, and I've actually been drafted in to support other business leaders using this solution focused approach. So it is very, very effective and works at all levels. So presenting again. Okay, so you'll have your induction, and you'll be given access to a range of program called CCS core skills program that we've developed over time. And these core skills programs focus on things like how to write a report, to how to deliver colorful semantics therapy. There's so many different vocabulary approach. There's so many different things. And the reason why we call it the core skills program is that we have found over time these are the things that people rely on or have questions about the most. Again, there's video tutorials, and some of the core skills program have additional sessions because they're a little bit more complicated and require a bit more of a discussion. So you have that all as part of your induction. Now, your induction doesn't happen over a week or 2 weeks, because in some services you have an induction week and you get all your information and that's it. But actually what we find is that it's better if we drip feed certain bits. So somebody will put together an induction program, and as part of your induction, you will get to shadow sessions, observe sessions, but also we find that from feedback of NQPs is that actually what they've done lots of shadowing and observing as part of your student placement, and what you really need is that hands-on experience. So we do a hands-on shadow session where the person whose sessions you're observing actually allows you opportunities to work with a child or work through an assessment, and then they can support you with the system side of things. So it's a bit more hands-on than just observing. In your first week, you will get daily informal supervision. Now, informal supervision will include, so we use Hangouts, so it could be via Hangouts, emails, a phone conversation, or it could be just a conversation in the office. You have group and one-to-one supervision. So you have your clinical groups, and then you have line management, which is one-to-one, and your groups look at all, and within your first few weeks, what you'll find is that in your one-to-ones you may also have clinical conversations as well. And We also check all reports. So you have, it's usually your clinical supervisor that checks and reviews all of your reports until they feel that you're at a stage where you can independently sign those off. It takes different people reach that milestone at different times. So it can be any from months to some people are on there long term. For 6 months. So it very much depends on the individual. Obviously, we want you to be able to write reports independently as quickly as possible, but only when you're able to. The competency framework, again, this is quite unique to ChatterBug. So what you will find, I'll come off and see, right, what you'll find is that you, at this stage, you may already be aware that Rcslt competency framework. And it's your responsibility to complete that framework and submit it to Rcslt once you've completed it to become fully registered, fully qualified. What we found is that the competency framework is huge. And one of the questions that we were getting, a question that keeps coming up is, but what evidence, what types of activities count as evidence for this particular competency? So we then took it upon ourselves to develop a framework that tells you what activities contribute to each of those competencies, which makes it easier to record, because actually the first 6 months you're exposed to most of the things that are on the competency, because even one day of working, there'll be loads of activities that you would have already been exposed to. So communication, discussions with other professionals, clinical decision making. You'll be exposed to so much, but you might not always know. And what our framework allows you to do is actually see what activities will count towards your competencies. That's the first thing. The second barrier that people were facing is having access to supervisors to sign off competency. So what we decided what we'll do is have key milestones throughout the year where you can submit your competencies. And we then free up supervisors to be available to check those competencies. So your competencies can be signed off. Now, this varies from organization to organization. Some will give you a dedicated time to work on your competencies. Ours is worked into your day, so we don't give dedicated competency time, but you'll all know there's going to be DNAs, there'll be that after school slot that's not being fully utilized. You can work on those, and in school holidays there's usually a bit more capacity, but ultimately it is your responsibility, and I want to be transparent about that. We don't give additional competency days and times, and I know some services do, but we as an organization don't. We have all, it's because we choose to use all that additional time to support you in this way instead, and for supervision as well. Any questions about that? No, because that's a big one. Your competencies are going to be a piece of advice: don't become tunnel visioned with your competencies, because sometimes people just become very obsessed with it and it becomes like this obsessive goal. You will get there. Focus on doing the job well. And when you sit back down and reflect, you will see how far you've come. That first 6 months of your journey, you will be exposed to so much. Every interaction that you had can technically be put towards your competency. Every time you meet with your line manager, every time you have a conversation with a senior member of staff to a junior member of staff, all of those are opportunities for you to show and develop your skills. So just be aware of that. So be familiar with what's on the competencies as well. That will really, really help, because some people haven't looked at them at all. If I'm honest with you, I was one of those people. But in hindsight, which is a beautiful thing, my wisdom I'm going to pass on to you is I would at least look at the competency framework so that you're aware of the types of evidence that you need to gather. And then our framework will then allow you to focus on which activities that you can include. But also what we have done is we've identified where one activity can contribute towards more than one competency, because some of them overlap. So does somebody have a question there? No. Okay.
Yeah, oh yeah, sorry.
Oh, Olivia, go for it.
Hi. I was just going to ask a question. So during obviously COVID, you haven't been able to be all in the same building together. So has supervision been impacted by that in any way, or has it been relatively okay?
Do you know, I think for us as a service, we mostly have we have gained so much positivity from COVID, because about 3 years ago, because we had services across the country, we decided that, you know, this thing called telehealth, this mythical beast at the time, 3 years ago, we were going to do telehealth, and we were going to do all of our supervision via video. And everyone said, oh no, that can't be done. It took us 5 days to get the service virtual, completely virtual now. And we do everything virtually, even things, activities like appreciation activities. So we use something called Jamboards. And so people, staff are doing staff appreciation boards. So we're doing all of our activities virtually with very little negative impact. Supervision has continued as well. And it's because we were already set up, we already had the tools. And as an organization, we're very solution focused, and we're very good at adapting. And we always have been. And I think all of those things enabled us to be able to pick up on these things quite quickly. So, and during COVID, what we have done, in addition to our normal supervision groups, is we've introduced well-being groups as well. So the well-being groups are an opportunity for you to just talk about how you're doing and share tips around mental health and well-being, because that's a massive challenge for a lot of people over lockdown. So we've introduced those as well, and they've been really positive. My favorite is chat and cake sessions. So they actually used to be physical, which is why they're called chat and cake. And we used those, and they were an opportunity for us to focus on our well-being, because we're quite a philosophical organization, we're quite deep, and we're quite a reflective organization. And we do activities that don't just nurture you as a professional, but nurture and grow you as a human being, because we feel that happy people make fantastic therapists. So supervision hasn't been impacted. We've been able to continue. And actually, a lot of students that have been with us during, I don't know if we have any of those students here today, but we have had lots of students with us during COVID who've also attended our supervision groups, but also our CPD activities. And they've just had a CPD day on Monday, which I wasn't part of, but I've heard the feedback has been really good, and they've all seemed to be really enthused by it as well. So hopefully that answers your question. But if anything,
that's
this
great,
virtual working should make supervision even more accessible.
That's great, thank you.
Brilliant. Any other questions about supervision? Yep. And if any of you, when you take your first jobs, you know, be aware of what the supervision structure is, but don't be afraid to go and ask for supervision and support. Okay, but know that supervision comes in very all different shapes and forms, and read the Rcslt guideline on what supervision is as well. Okay. Okay. We also do journal clubs and in-house training lots. We have at least 4 CPD days a year as a minimum, but quite often we have more. We also have a CPD newsletter that goes around on a monthly basis that gives you bite-sized chunks on the latest evidence and new things to try in your therapy as well. Staff perks. So we do have a staff perks site, Chatterbox staff perks site, where you can clock up points on everything from furniture to travel, and it's really quite good. We have Health Shield, which is a healthcare cash plan, so you can claim money back on health and well-being services. So from dental to, you can actually claim back things like massage, where it's around your well-being and improving your well-being. And we do have long-term sickness cover for certain conditions. We don't have sick pay, but we do have long-term sickness cover. So for example, if you were to break an arm or you weren't able to come to work as a result of an injury, you would be covered as part of that long-term sickness. We do have a maternity package as well. I hear it's a very good one. We have a couple of members of staff that are accessing it currently. And Health for Sure, this is the one that I think we use the most. This is our 24-hour health and well-being number, where if you're having any kind of a crisis or feel that you need additional support, you can contact this Health Assured number and they'll offer you counselling or support. But also you can use it to access loads of courses like how to manage your money, or working on your well-being, or there's just so many I can't even begin to explain, like really practical ones, really good ones, that you wouldn't have thought affect your life. Because remember, as a student, you know you're living your life in a certain way, and you have and you're all in the same boat. But when you transition to becoming a full-time employee, it's very different, and then you have new challenges. And you're expected to be more independent, and you may be thinking about things like buying the first home or things like that. So it's great to be able to have that site to go for additional support and advice. It does feel like a family. We do challenge each other, but we are a very supportive of our team, and the team is supportive of each other as well. So career progression, so we're almost towards the end. This is kind of what our structure looks like. It's I mean, it is currently, but it may change ever so slightly. So as you can see, the green, so we have a business team and we have a clinical team, and the green bit is predominantly our business team. And the business team is made up of our admin team, our IT, so it's a little bit outdated, our marketing lead, our business admin lead is all within the business team. We currently don't have an operational manager, but we have a number of business managers. So you can see some of it is developed. And let's talk about the SLT part. So we do have our SLTAs, or CALs as they are now known, and you'll come in as an NQP SLT and then progress to an SLT role after you completed your competencies. And then you have two options of progressing your career within our organisation, because what we recognise is that not all speech therapists are keen on becoming traditional managers who do line management and hold staff accountable and do all of that career progression stuff. Some senior staff are just very interested in the more clinical part, and they're developing their clinical knowledge and their research knowledge. So we've developed two senior roles within the organisation. So your advanced practitioner are those that will specialise in generally a clinical area. But not only will they have a clinical area, they will be our go-to as an organisation for clinical knowledge or anything. So recently we had a request for some information for a tribunal on a therapy approach, and I went to one of our advanced practitioners and said, I really need to provide this information. Please, can you go away and research and present that to me so I can share? And she went away and did that research. The advanced practitioner are also involved in reviewing the evidence, the new evidence that comes out that informs our practice. They develop all of our pathways for both services. They look at the quality that we deliver, the quality of the care that we deliver within the service. And the senior SLTs, they are more around the business development. Also the advanced practitioners are involved in providing majority of the clinical supervision and support and development of staff in that way. And the senior SLTs are there to develop you and nurture you as a person as well as a professional. And so they do all the line management. They help you with your career progression. They hold staff to account in terms of their productivity. So sometimes that can lead to more difficult conversations. They're the ones that are involved in more strategic planning of the business, but work very closely with the advanced practitioners because they need that clinical knowledge. So those are the two routes that you can go into. And then we have a consultant SLT. And so the pink roles, the consultant SLT and the highly specialist SLT, the highly specialist SLT, where you'll see that where there's dots, that means that role doesn't currently exist but will do. I think by April, March, we will have our first highly specialist SLT, and that person will work very closely with myself in terms of shaping the vision of the organisation, and will oversee the advanced practitioners And the consultant SLT slash team leader currently oversees the senior SLTs. But at the moment, I kind of sit between some days doing an MD role, some days doing a SLT role. We do have a team leader as well. But it's just a big service and there's a lot of change and growth. So I straddle two camps. But I've already told my team I'm retiring in the next 5 years. So there's lots of opportunity. And then we have our chief operating officer who looks at more the operational side of the business. So, oh, I have a video for you. Right, let me click this. Hopefully it will work. So this is from some of our NQPs.
Hi, Asma. Sorry, is the video started? So, I don't think it's showing up on most of our screens at the moment.
Ah, okay. Right. Hold on. I'm not sure. Let's have a look. Can hands up if anyone can, if people can see it, or people were able to see it. Oh, you weren't able to see it. I know what I need to do. Just give me 2 seconds. If I click on this, right. Okay, so let's try this again. Right, let me give you a better intro. I'll do another intro. We'll pretend that didn't happen. So I just think it's really, it's a good opportunity for you guys to hear from the NQPs, because obviously I'm the director and I've been doing this for a while, and I'm one of the co-founders of ChatterBug, and I love ChatterBug and what we do. But it'll be nice for you to hear from other NQPs. So this video, hopefully it will work this time. So please shout if it doesn't. I'm going to present it from a separate tab. Is that working?
All good, thank you. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Rachel, and I graduated from Leeds Beckett in the summer of 2019, so I'm really new to speech and language therapy. I'm a newly qualified practitioner, and I've been working as a speech and language therapist for ChatterBug for about 7 months now.
Hi, so I'm Rosie. I'm a speech and language therapist at ChatterBug. I've worked here since August 2019, so that's nearly 5 months now. How do you count? I first decided that I wanted to be a speech and language therapist when I was probably about 14. I went to a primary school which had a speech and language therapy unit attached to it, so I've been around for a lot of my life, and then you get to like start thinking about GCSEs and you start Googling, and I just kind of went from there really. Started researching it more, became more interested as I went along.
I decided to become an SLT, mainly because I just love working with children and I wanted to be able to make a difference in a way that I hadn't really done before. I'd always worked as a nanny and things like that, but I really wanted to sort of take a step up and make a real difference. Probably people who stammer. I think they're a really interesting client group. Because of sort of the complexities of the work we do with them. It's not all just direct therapy, some of it's a little bit more sort of using those psychology modules.
My favourite client group to work with is complex needs kids or autistic children. I have the most amount of fun with a lot of bubbles, really. I chose to work for ChatterBug straight out of university, and I actually already had a different job lined up when I got offered the job here, and I chose to stay in Leeds and work for ChatterBug as opposed to move to a different part of the country. I liked the city. I'd had good responses from people that I knew that had worked for ChatterBug in the past. And kind of when I came for my interview here, I just got a really good vibe of everyone, and I felt like it was a nice place to fit in.
There's a couple of things really. I think I really related to their social objectives. So they've got 3 social objectives. One of them really rang true for me, and that is to reduce the environmental impact. Something that's really important to me, and it's also something that's really important to ChatterBug, and I really liked that those sort of objectives aligned. We're a paper-free, paper-light maybe is the best way to say it, company, and that really ran true for me. We are always trying to reduce our environmental impact, use online resources, that kind of thing. So that's one of the really sort of key things that pulled me into working for ChatterBug. But also the ability to sort of go and work in the same schools weekly and really build that relationship up with the schools and all the different children. Probably really cheesy and everyone will say this, but no 2 days are the same. I genuinely mean that. It's a real family feel. I think everyone you ask in the team would say that. We're a really close team, and there's just always somebody around to have a cup of tea with and just ask any questions that you need to ask.
Very flexible. I am on my caseload. I have quite a few schools, but also quite a few private clients as well. I see such a varied range of kids. I can go from a session with Year 6 kids where we're working on SATs vocabulary down to a session with a 2-year-old where we're doing really early interaction-based work. So no day's ever the same. Probably everyone that I work with. It's quite a nice office in the sense that you come in and we're all in one big office. You've got the speech and language therapist, you've got the speech therapy assistants, admin, managers, we're all in one big open office and we all just chat. It's quite nice for additional supervision almost, so if there's anything you're not sure of from that day, it's really easy just to pull someone, and that's not always a senior therapist, we quite frequently bounce off each other as newly qualified, so that's quite nice.
I'd say it's the people that I work with, that being my colleagues, but also the children that I work with and all the different professionals that we come into contact with, schools, school teachers, parents, everyone.
I think they did a better job in explaining what it's like at ChatterBug. I should just show you that video. Got myself a cup of tea. Hope that gave you a bit of an idea from the team, and it was nice to hear from them and their experience as well. It was definitely nice for me to see this video again because Rosie's actually on maternity leave. And Rachel is still with us working with. So yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my presentation. Oh, wrong one. Let's try that again. Okay, see where we are. So we've just done this. Our aspirations for you. Now we have really high aspirations because we know that therapy services, not just SLT, need to evolve for what the community needs. And we want to help create confident SLTs that are inspirational and change lives. Research and development and innovation is a big area for us that we want to move into. We want to continue to challenge ourselves. We believe in the Japanese term is kaizen, which is continuous self improvement. So as an organization, we're continuously looking at how we can improve and develop. And we want to become a recognized brand leading provider of speech therapy services. And how have we adjusted to COVID? So I've told you a little bit about this already, but you know, some of the positives from telehealth are there's been increased parental engagement, particularly in the first lockdown. Parents were so on board because because we work in schools predominantly in Leeds, they hadn't had the opportunity always to be as involved in therapy, so parents really valued that. It was nice. It's nice to be able to see the children in environments that they are really comfortable with. For our NHS service in Holton, sometimes the location of clinics, you know, parents had to travel with other children, all those issues went away, so it made it a bit more accessible. We've been we already had a lot of virtual resources, but so when I said we moved from being quite physical to completely virtual within 5 days, we didn't do that just by a flick of a switch. We actually got our entire senior team and we locked them away in a little room and we asked them to look at all the research and evidence about telehealth and how we can make telehealth effective. So they did all of that and what resources we need to make. So all of that, all the basic resources were developed in that very short period, and we've then built and grown on that. One of the things that the therapists are really enjoying is not having any distractions in terms of when you're in a school, somebody might, or even if you're in clinic, somebody might just want to grab you for a conversation, just ask you about another child. So it's been quite nice to be able to just have more time for the session. And it's enabled us to do cross-site working. So in terms of our service that we adopted, our Holton service, you know, there was still quite a lot of ground we needed to cover there, and staffing was always a little bit tricky in terms of there just wasn't enough SLT time. So what we managed to do is pool all of our resources, and as I said, that some of our staff are working across different sites. So where we had those staffing needs, we've been able to support each other virtually. So it's been really positive. And, you know, over 10,000 sessions were delivered in under 10 months. And I'll let you read some of the feedback that we had from parents and schools. And I was reading some feedback from some of our schools in North Yorkshire today, where in the first lockdown, the schools weren't too sure about telehealth. And this time round, they were just like so grateful that there was that service, and it was providing that continuity of care. So it's been very positive. So just some statistics about COVID. Again, we've been delivering a number of virtual placements, and I can't remember the figure, but I think it was in the 20s between September and December, 20 placements that we'd offered across universities, virtual placements to students, because we were very keen that the students still continued to receive that clinical experience, because some of you would have missed out on that valuable hands-on clinical placement experience because of the lockdown. and some of the universities that we've worked with, as well as placements. We did deliver a student project, which was very, very positive, and we want to deliver that again over the summer. And our most recent project was 2 students working with us 2 days a week, where they learn all the admin processes, and then so calling parents, booking appointments, all that kind of stuff. And then they were doing modeling care plan sessions. And one of the things that the students felt that was really positive from that experience is that they felt more confident to be able to apply for their first job. And they felt more confident in terms of talking to parents and having those conversations. Sometimes it's those small things that really scare people, like picking up the phone and making a phone call to a parent is quite scary when you're an NQP. So they were able to get all of that experience in before they even applied for their first job. So that was really, really good for them. Previous graduates, I mean, I'm just looking at the time. Obviously, I've shown you the video, and you will get the handouts, so you can have a little read through this. And these are just snippets of what some of our staff have said. Again, I'll let you read through that when we send over. So is ChatterBug for you? And I think these are the questions you need to ask yourself, because it's not for everybody. It's a very hands-on, accountable service, and you have to want to be good at being a speech therapist and wanting to deliver the best care. So do you want to be part of something that is more than just a job? So I said, for us, it's about developing you as a person as well as a professional. Are you open to challenges and believe in personal development? So again, working for ChatterBug isn't for people who don't like being taken out of their comfort zone, because we want to help you to be able to achieve your expectations, but also achieve the goals that you set for yourself. Do you see yourself as a future leader? We believe that everyone can be a leader within the organization, whether it's a senior manager to an NQP, because you are inspiring people every day to change their lives. And I think the biggest thing about challenge is we're quite often asking our patients, our clients, to do things that might be scary. We need to know what that feels like. It's really, really important. But in order to be able to get people behind something, you need to be good at leading them. So those leadership skills are skills that we will develop in people right from the beginning. Do you want to grow and develop with an organization? So we are a young organization still, and we have really high aspirations, and we're still experimenting, exploring where this journey is going to take us. But we obviously have those really tried and tested methods that work, and we know work. Do you have ideas and want the chance to implement these? We're always willing to listen. We love listening to people's ideas and trying things. So the CPD day, one of our team, led by an AP and mostly NQPs, have developed a dynamic vocabulary assessment that allows you to trial strategies and approaches for teaching vocabulary to children. It's really, really good, and I hope that we'll be able to write something about it in the bulletin as well and share it, but we're currently in the testing phase. So we obviously, I mentioned we have a number of in-house programs that are unique to us that we've developed. We also have things like Talk Boost. We're looking at LCLAN training and having an LCLAN tutor and a Makaton tutor, just because there is that need, but there is a big focus on delivering training we're interested in as an organization, and it may be something that you have an interest in delivering training. So here are some examples of some of the courses we deliver. I will share some links with you as well so if you want to come on board. DLD seems to be one that comes up again and again. Now, I would say if you don't feel confident, I would love to be able to see every therapist feel comfortable making that DLD diagnosis, because it's something that a lot of speech therapists are very apprehensive about. But if we're not diagnosing them, nobody else is, because this is our specialist area. So think about your DLD knowledge and how confident you are in terms of identifying and diagnosing those children. And these are just some questions that came up But actually, before we continue with these, I want to come back to you. So let me make sure I can see you. I want to come back to you and see if you have any questions. I have some links to share with you. Whilst you have a moment to think, I will share those links. And these are to our social media, to our training, and I'm going to pop them in the chat. And the first link is actually a oh, that didn't work. Let me try that again. Excuse me. Oh, that's why. The first link is to a feedback form, because I'd like to know how you found this session. So if you could please complete this feedback form, and then they will send you a copy of the slides once we receive your feedback. The second one is a newsletter that will tell you about things that's going on within the organization, and all of our social media and our courses. And I'll come back to you now for questions. Any questions? Have I put you all to sleep?
Hi.
Hiya, Becky.
Hiya. Do you have the opportunity for full and part-time positions at ChatterBug, mainly full-time?
Yep. So most of our jobs that are advertised as full-time, because that's the need, but we are flexible. We do have a couple of members of staff that are full-time. What I would say is 3 days, as an NQP, 3 days, 3 to 4 days is probably what would be best. Otherwise, it takes a long time for you to kind of settle into your role. But we are open and flexible to consider. We are very keen on having the right people for the organization. So we're open to consideration, is what I would say. And the other thing that my colleagues will absolutely kill me if I don't mention is that what we have had is a lot of applicants from people who are due to qualify imminently, and they may have completed all their exams, or they might just have 1 or 2 exams left. But usually they have a very good idea of predicted grades, and we know by now whether they're going to pass the degree. And what we do in those positions is we can offer a trainee SLT role, and that works really, really well. So it's very similar to the NQP SLT role, except you get additional supervision. But if you don't want to wait and you want to apply now, we have about, in total, I think we're looking for maybe 2 to 3 roles, and there are interviews coming up. So I would say just apply. If you're not sure, I would just apply, and you can clarify that in terms of your starting, because we do want the right people, and we will wait for the right people. But we do have availability now, and we can take people on as trainee SLTs. So that is an option. So Becky, hopefully I answered your question.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Hi.
Yeah. Hello. Sorry, who?
Sorry, it's Emma. Hi.
Hello, Emma.
Where do you advertise these jobs? Are they just on your website or?
Yep. So we advertise on our website, Indeed, and NHS Jobs.
Perfect. Thank you.
So if you go onto our website now, there probably will be some vacancies. Any other questions? No. Should we have a look at some of the questions that people have asked? Because these might trigger some questions. I have it on my second screen. Oh, Olivia. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, I guess you work across lots of different locations, but yeah, so for example, say Leeds, what would you say the ratio is of the types of referrals you get? So the ratio of private maybe to school referrals.
Okay, so most of our work, I would say majority of our work in Leeds is in schools. Private clients probably make a very small percentage at the moment. So we have in Leeds alone, I would say we probably have about, I think about 80, 90 schools in Leeds, and private client caseload is about, currently because of COVID, probably have about 30. So not many. That could change, obviously, at any point, but that's how it stands. If you ask me today, those are the current stats. So it's not a huge part of our work, but we are hoping to grow that. And we currently have about 6 or 7 on the waiting list. So it's very, very small numbers for who are waiting for face-to-face. So it is very, very small numbers of private clients. I think it's your internet, Olivia. Hopefully you received that response. Anyone else have a question? No? Okay, so I'll just tell you some of the questions. Is there advice you would give for your time as an NQP that you wish you had previously known? I think I've shared a few tips. Trying to think, because my first role was actually working in Sure Start back in the Sure Start days, and I went into a role where I was actually managing co-workers, assistants. Now, for me, it was a steep learning curve, but it was an added challenge, because you're learning to be a professional yourself, and if you don't have previous work experience working in a supervisory capacity, it can be really, really hard. And I remember that being emotionally quite a challenge, as well as trying to learn to do my job. So just be aware of that, but don't use that as a barrier, because actually I would do that all over again because of the skills I gained from it. So don't be afraid not to take on something challenging, but just make sure that you have the right support in place for yourselves. Do you have any advice on how to maximize the benefits of having supervision as an NQP? We've talked loads about that, and I said it's all about you knowing what it is you want from a supervision. The more you know what you want, the more you'll get out of the supervision. And remember, supervision can come in all shapes and sizes, all different forms, informal and formal, and don't just rely on the formal, because the formal face-to-face, when you're with that person, almost becomes codependency. What you want to do is tap into all the different types of supervision that's available, including your colleagues and your peers as well. Do you have any advice on how to prepare for the job interview stage? Research the organization that you're going to apply for. Make sure you know about them as an organization, and what is it they want from you, and where it's tempting to go into a role just because you need a job, because let's face it, harsh truth is that we all have bills to pay. Take a moment to think about whether that is the right place for you as well, and what it is that you want from your wider career aspirations. And be honest, just be really, really honest, and be open as well, because we're quite picky about who we take on, because we want you to fit in with the rest of our team, and it is a privilege to be part of this team. And I don't say that in an arrogant way, because I know how welcoming, warm, loving, caring and nurturing this team is, and they will literally give you 110% into any relationship that they have. So it is, we want people that are equally willing to give to that as well. Best tips for maintaining engagement with children or a telehealth appointment. The best resources are right. So now some of our counterparts are just holding things up to screen. Our therapists are doing all sorts of online games, online activities, really experiment the boundaries. But remember, so there's so much you can do just with a camera. The funniest session I had for me was when I observed a therapist blowing bubbles, and the child was popping the bubbles because they thought they were popping them, but it was actually the therapist doing it. And I don't know how she managed to do it, but she was very good at multitasking. So experiment, but also know that you can keep it quite simple. So I know there's a tool out there called a visualizer, but you can achieve that using, so we have work phones and tablets, you can achieve the same. So the way the visualizer works is that you basically have dual screens and you present from one and you project onto one. And our therapists have been doing that. But it's a lot of the online games and pictures that we developed as well. Books are great. You can do so much with books. And don't be afraid just to have a conversation, a focused conversation. So stories are great starters, conversation starters, but you can work on vocabulary with stories. You can develop narrative skills with books. Books for me are one of the go-to therapy tools. As I am, and the other thing I'll say is we have an autism resource space, and we've had fantastic engagement with our children, our SOCCOM children, on telehealth. So never say never. Don't ever write it off. Even with we even had a therapist working with a 18-month-old who had a tracheostomy. So it was all about the parental engagement, but the child was so absorbed by the screen and what the therapist was doing on the screen. So, you know, just be creative and give it a go. I'm graduating in September, but my full registration is unlikely to come through until October. So, yep, you can work in a trainee SLT capacity. Top tips for being organised as an NQP. I feel like I've shared some tips along the way, but my top one would be organising your time, thinking about and not overcommitting. So, you know, it's okay to say no. Like when you're working in schools, there's always going to be so much to do, and you don't have to do just one more. You're not doing anybody any favors, because actually what you're going to do is experience burnout. So be comfortable with saying no. Practice that before you take on your first role. You'll be so much happier for it at the end, and the people that you're working for will also be happier because you'll be less stressed. Can final year students apply for currently advertised job with a view to start as soon as they've? Yep, absolutely. How difficult is it to find NQP positions without a driving license? In all honesty, it is hard, and we have bent the rule a little bit at times. The reason why it's hard, particularly outside of London, is that there's so much commuting, so much traveling, and particularly in Leeds and definitely in Cheshire, the public transport systems aren't great, and it causes a lot of stress. And you know, the one aspect of our role as speech and language therapists, we always have loads of bags, loads of stuff. So it's not easy. We have occasionally bent the rules, and I'm sure there will be other services that have, but it's usually people that are likely to pass. The only thing I would say on that is that then it's the stress of being a new driver, which a lot of people find stressful. So just to be mindful of that. We have recently employed someone who we felt was the right fit for the organization, and that's why we've kind of gone with this person, but it would be with a view to them passing their driving test, and we'll just continue to monitor how much of an impact that's having on their work-life balance. How will the NQP year differ from those of us training in a pandemic with unsatisfactory clinical hours? That's a hard one, but I'll let you into a little secret. I won't swear because it's being recorded. Because you know, I said at the beginning that my niece is trained to be a speech and language therapist, and bless her, she's almost had a year and a half in lockdown, so she's missed out on a big chunk. And I said to her, don't worry, because she's worried about not being very good. And I said to her, don't worry, they're all going to be as rubbish as you. Okay? It's all okay. You're all in the same boat. It's down to your employer to nurture you, right? It's your responsibility as well. But find an organization where they will nurture you and be understanding of that, but will give you that experience. You don't, like, for me, I think it's really important that you go to a service that has high expectations of you. Not high expectations without the right support, because that's not helpful. That just leads to stress. But accept the fact that A, your first six to 7 months is going to be stressful because it's the first job, right? That's hard anyway. B, you've had less clinical experience. Don't, be prepared to learn though, okay? Be prepared to put in the extra time, because by putting in that extra time in your own time, it will make your life so much easier and less stressful. And take the advice of your supervisors, because so many times I will talk to staff, and I know our seniors give advice around managing your caseload. But take that ownership, because we can't help you if you think the work is to blame. Because the grass is not greener on the other side. It's the same work wherever you go. It's hard. We're dealing with people's lives. It's not easy. But if any of us wanted an easy job, we probably would have gone into a different profession, right? Our job is always about continuous professional development. I'm still learning. And actually, we love surrounding ourselves with people that know more than us. So we're all, as a senior team, continuously learning. And that's the beauty of it. You're all in the same boat. We're all in the same boat. We're all learning together. But it's that intention to learn. As long as you have that willingness and intention to learn, and you accept that it's going to be hard, you're all in the same boat. You'll all be fine. We're all rubbish. But actually, we're all great. Remember what I said at the beginning? We're all specialists. We might be rubbish, but we know our stuff, right? Nobody else knows about language and communication more than we do. Whether you're an NQP or an experienced therapist, we know our stuff because we've done the degree and we can tick that box. We just now need to refine our skills. Okay. And, don't take, and I'm not just saying this to kind of boost your morale. I have worked with senior therapists that have worked in the profession for 40 years, and really they shouldn't be in the job anymore. And the reason why is they've lost that passion and drive. And I always say this to myself, that once I've lost that passion and drive, I need to leave and make room for someone else who has that passion and drive. That's what we need. And as long as you have that, you will be fine. I can promise you on that, you'll be fine. It's going to be tough, but you will make it through. And that's the last question on my list. Any questions from you guys? Are you all nervous about taking on your first NQP role because of COVID, or just nervous because it's going to be your first NQP role?
Hi.
Hello. Hi, Eleanor.
Oh, it's Lauren, sorry.
Oh, Lauren, sorry. No, Eleanor has left the meeting. It's Lauren.
That's
Hello, Lauren.
That's okay. I was just going to say that I think feeling nervous going into it about with COVID in mind is a big thing. But I'm a student about to start placement at ChatterBug. Actually, I'm really excited that experience will help shape future telehealth as well. Because some people are saying, like, we've got this tool now, we won't go backwards. Telehealth is only going to expand, and it'll be a really useful experience. I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, absolutely. We've actually incorporated telehealth into all of our clinical pathways in our NHS service, because there's a real place for it, and it means that we can get to families in a time and place that suits them and a lot faster. So so that's great, and I'm really excited that you're going to have that experience. I know our students have really good experience at ChatterBug, and I base that on the feedback that we've received. I'll tell you another little tip. The one thing that I know causes people a lot of stress is report writing. So wherever you go on your clinical placement, so Lauren, little tip for you, ask if you can have the opportunity to write a report.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
And get feedback on it, because actually that report writing, right? And one of my pet peeves, I'll tell you now, I don't like fluffy language in reports, because if you think it should or may, don't write it, because to me, it's because you're saying that because the evidence isn't there. But if you've got the evidence, believe in your own abilities and believe in what you're saying, right? If you're unsure, put it in your case notes. But if you're certain of what you're seeing and you have the evidence to back it up, put it in your report. And one of the things that we used to, so when you 2P over a team, it means that you're adopting a team that was previously there. So when we took over, when we 2P'd over the NHS service in Holton, and we adopted the team, they were rife with complaints. From parents. They were getting loads of complaints, and people were petrified of these complaints. And the way I view complaints is that that person is basically saying, I need something that isn't what you're giving me. That's what a complaint is, right? And we looked at what these complaints were about, and actually there was one common theme, and that was communication, right? So what the therapists had failed to do is just communicate what was going to happen, what the next steps were. But also, when you read their reports, their reports sounded unsure, right? So that instantly they were on a downer, because that person is reading their report and is thinking, well, you don't sound too confident and sure, so how can I be confident in what you have written? And also, you haven't told me what's going to happen. And there's a lot of that going on. So be confident, right? Parents aren't scary. Well, some of them are, but I'm a parent. And actually, I'll let you into a little secret. I'm also a parent with 2 children with speech and language needs, one of whom is currently undergoing assessment as well. So for me, that's been a steep learning curve, because I'm now having to be on that parent journey. And I can tell you all the anxieties and worries that a parent has, and all the decisions the parents are having to make, is what makes them lash out. And we need those parents to be the strongest advocates for their children, because those children need that, right? So don't be afraid of difficult parents. See it as your challenge. You know, try and this is where you engage your listening skills. Listen to them. What is it that they're really saying? What you're hearing is all the anger, but actually look beyond that anger. What is it that they're really saying? And quite often you will find is that they're scared, they're worried, and they're nervous. Yeah, so I'll leave that bit there. But Lauren, hopefully that's answered your question.
That's really helpful. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Any other questions? No? Okay, fantastic. Well, I wish you all, you know, the best. Oh, there is a question there. Is it from Shabana? Yep.
Hi, Asma.
Hello,
Hi,
Shabana.
everyone. Hi. I posted it in the chat, but I'll just say it as well. If you don't live near Halton or Leeds, are you still able to apply to work for ChatterBug?
At the moment, we are looking for staff that will be able to relocate to those areas. We are exploring having exclusive just telehealth roles, but it's a little bit early to fully understand that. We've also had a number of our staff who over lockdown decided that they're going to go home and stay home. So they've continued to remain employed by us. And who could blame her? We have a member of staff who went from Leeds, and her family live in a farm. So she decided over lockdown she's going to go back home and live in the farm. And after the first lockdown, she decided she doesn't want to relocate to Leeds. So we've continued to keep her employed, and she's working completely virtually. So we do have those roles, but I would keep an eye out for those roles. But our current roles are with a view to returning to physical working.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Any other questions? No. Okay. Well, best of luck. And obviously, it is a daunting time, but hopefully it's an exciting time. You've done all the hard work, right? You've done 90%, well, 80% of the hard work, and you've just got another 6 months to go. Right? Look at it that way. And you've got the rest of your SLT career ahead of you. And believe me, it is absolutely worth it. Thank you very much. If you could sign up, complete the feedback form, that would be really appreciated. And keep an eye on our social media, where we will advertise our training events. We do have a training session coming up. It's the vocabulary training, and that's coming up, I think, next week. Again, that's a very good approach. Or if you're going to focus on one area to develop, I quite often say to schools, let's start with the vocabulary. So if you want to come on that, please do have a look and sign up. If not, I wish you all the best, and hopefully I'll see you all at the other end. Sorry, what was that? Oh, I thought I heard somebody, but no. Thank you very much then, everybody. Best of luck in your final placements as well, and good luck with your exams. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.